What's up, guys? Today I'm making a video I've been meaning to make for a really long time. So whenever I post a video or post some charts, I always put a little picture that explains some guidelines of what each of the categories is supposed to mean. But it's really hard to put, hard and fast objective rules on these things because football is such a dynamic game and plays can look so different. Even the same exact play with the same exact target can look wildly different because it's a ball flying through the air. It can get tipped, it can get bobbled, it can have a weird spiral. Things happen. So, in this video, I'm going to quickly show you a few, I think, pertinent examples of what each kind of throw looks like. Let's get to it. The first kind of pass that we're going to go over is the routine pass. You may also hear me call them mundane or infamously pedestrian. Pedestrian has kind of a negative connotation online these days, and mundane is very British sounding. So I think routine is the term I'm going to try to go with from here on out. But these are just screens, short slants. You really don't need to know much about them. Sometimes they'll be a little further downfield with a coverage bust like this. Now, the one noteworthy routine pass that gets a lot of people confused is the RPO. I'm going to show you a clip of an RPO from one of my favorites, Sam Howell. When you see the all-22, it looks a lot less impressive than when you watch on the broadcast angle. On the broadcast angle, these things look sick because they're so slick, they're so clean, right? They're really well schemed. As you can see in this play, it is a wide open throw, 5 to 8 yards downfield. Nothing to it. Anybody can do it. It's routine. You're not penalized for these passes, but you're certainly not praised. It's like not getting a speeding ticket when you drive or getting a cab home when you're drunk. If you don't do that, now we're in trouble, right? That's a perfect segue, though. Let's talk about solid passes. These are good passes. So I use solid and good interchangeably, but they're not special, right? Great and elite passes are special. Solid passes are usually 7, 8 yards minimum downfield, probably maximum of around 15. And sometimes they can be an RPO. This RPO by Geno Smith is really good. It's downfield, it requires a lot of zip, and it's into a relatively tight window. It's all about context, right? And then the number one most controversial good pass is a coverage bust. This can result in a huge touchdown, but it's not hard. Nobody was covering the wide receiver. You'll also find some jump balls that are good. This play by Marcus Mariota is a sick play, right? Watch as he escapes multiple would-be sackers and on the run makes a very deep throw that his receiver can catch. Now, it's underthrown. It's not an easy catch, right? It's a jump ball, but it's certainly good. It's downfield. It's very far downfield, and it's accurate, and his receiver can make a play on it. And if he was on the Cincinnati Bengals and had T. Higgins or Jamar Chase going up for that thing, it's probably a touchdown. We're probably praising him. But because it's 5'9", Alamade Zaccheaus, not as much. This is a good opportunity as well to tell you about plus movements. I give bonuses for maneuvering the pocket really well. This is a great example of a play where there are 2 plus pocket movements. He avoids one blitzer, and he avoids a second. You might even give him a third for throwing accurately on the run to continue extending the play. But in this particular case, it's Marcus Mariota, so I always try to be a little less enthusiastic with my praise than I would like to be because people think I am too high on him. And I'm always trying to correct against any possible bias. Now, as I just showed you, most of the time jump balls are good, but sometimes they're great. And in the case of the Mariota play, if it was any quarterback that wasn't Marcus Mariota, there's a really good chance I grade it as great just because I wouldn't have to worry about possibly giving into a bias, right? I like Marcus Mariota more than most, so I try to be a little extra hard on him when I grade him. Same with Baker Mayfield. Sometimes, though, jump balls are great. Look at this ball by Geno Smith, right down the seam, puts it above the defender's head, notices that the defender's looking away, utilizes that leverage to give his tight end an opportunity to rise up and snatch that ball out of the air for a touchdown. It's a great play. This is what a traditional great ball looks like. It's usually an intermediate pass, somewhere between 10 and 20 yards downfield-ish, up to 25. Anything past 25 is typically going to be elite if it's accurate. Or If you've got like a 50-yard pass that slows the receiver down, but he still catches it, it could be great. It's all about context. Finally, just because a pass is great doesn't mean it's caught. A really, really good throw into a very tight window, but albeit to an open receiver, can be dropped. Baker Mayfield knows that better than most, especially when you're targeting Shi Smith. Do not expect to get bailed out with a catch. Finally, that leads us to elite plays. Now, elite plays are probably the most controversial, and people get really confused. Sometimes you can throw an incredible pass, and it's caught, and it's a touchdown. Or the same exact incredible pass can get dropped, and that stinks. You don't get paid off for your great work. And sometimes you can make an incredible pass, and somehow it can get intercepted. And this is why we grade every play rather than just deferring to statistics, because this play is an interception on Joe Burrow's part. And I am no Joe Burrow fan, but he made a great play here. This should not be counted against him. EPA counts this against him. QBR counts it against him. Passer rating, interceptions, basically every statistic that you can imagine says this was a really bad play by Joe Burrow. Our eyes tell us it was a great play by Joe Burrow. Let's flip it completely over now, because here's an example of Trevor Lawrence, another very popular quarterback who I think is pretty good, throwing a terrible pass. For reference, Roger McCreary, the cornerback who almost picks this off, is about 5'8" and fell in the draft for having the shortest arms anybody had ever heard of from a cornerback at 21 inches. His arms are about as long as two of my feet. Roger McCreary had this ball between his hands, and unfortunately, I have to show you all 22 for copyright reasons. If I could show you the broadcast angle, and if you have an NFL Plus subscription, go ahead and find it. This ball literally brushed 4 of his fingers, 2 on each hand. He just missed. And it pops into Zay Jones's hands. And he scores a touchdown. And it goes down in the books as a great, deep touchdown pass. It's one of 5 balls that Trevor Lawrence completed deep to his right. I don't know. Are you impressed by that pass? Do you think it should have been completed? If it wasn't for that, Trevor Lawrence would have been 4 of 32 on deep passes to his right. Instead, he's 5. This is one of 2 touchdowns he scored passing deep to his right. This kind of play completely messes up the statistics, especially when you get down into sub-statistics. When you start looking at how good a player is at throwing to different parts of the field or to different receivers, the sample size gets smaller, and these kinds of drastic foibles can really mess with your data. It's why we watch the games. Alternatively, pickable balls can happen when a quarterback just misses, or they miss the defender and throw it directly where they wanted at the defender. That's how decision-making can come into play. I try not to second guess who a quarterback chooses to throw to. If you found an open man and you threw the ball to them accurately, I'm not in the business of second guessing that. That'll take care of itself, because if you continually choose the conservative option, Dak Prescott, you will not get large chunks of yardage. So your drives will stall out more often because you need to be perfect. Finally, let's get to bad passes. Bad passes are kind of simple. Usually it's just a miss, but sometimes a quarterback can be accurate and make a bad decision, like they're late on a throw. See this one. Yeah, the ball went right where the quarterback wanted, but it was late, and therefore the defender could make a play on it or hit the receiver. Additionally, batted passes smacked down by a defensive lineman, they're bad, right? It's just as bad as if you had missed. You didn't understand where you were trying to throw the ball properly, or sometimes you're just too short. Although you'll note that most of the batted passes in the NFL happen from guys like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. Really tall dudes get passes batted all the time. It's more a function of offensive line and how they're blocking than it really is anything else. Finally, not all bad passes are incomplete, but they should be. They were inaccurate. They were objectively inaccurate. But look at this pass from Jalen Hurts. It gets caught. That's a first down. In fact, some people might call that an explosive play, and it certainly helped Jalen Hurts' EPA, passer rating, etc. That's a terrible throw. That's all the different kinds of passes that we chart. As far as runs go, I'm not going to show them because, again, context dependent, but more formulaic. Typically, if a run nets as many yards as a solid throw would, so 8 to 20 yards, that's typically a positive run. And I'll give a bonus point for anything further than that. The same way I would for a great pass. Additionally, if it's a bad run, if a quarterback keeps on a read option when they really shouldn't, it's a negative run. If a run goes for a few yards or it's a quarterback sneak, that's a neutral run. And it's just belaboring the point by showing clips isn't going to help. I will show clips, however, briefly on the different kinds of sacks because not all sacks are on the quarterback, but many of them, if not most of them, are. Sometimes a quarterback just gets hung out to dry. On this play, you can see the quarterback has nowhere to go, goes through his progressions properly, and just the offensive line didn't hold up long enough. Nobody got open. He gets hit. It's done. But sometimes the quarterback messes up. The quarterback misses a read like Geno Smith does here. He has two dudes wide open underneath. You can see here and here. And he just doesn't look at him for whatever reason. And he takes a sack instead. Things that can affect whether or not a quarterback sack is on the quarterback or on the offensive line or on somebody else. Sometimes a defensive end just makes an incredible play. Like if Troy Polamalu hurdles the offensive line to sack you, it's nobody's fault. That's God's fault for making Troy Polamalu too athletic and smart. So we blame the quarterback more in scenarios where it is third or fourth down, in scenarios where wide receivers are open, in scenarios where the quarterback should know for clock reasons that they can't take a sack and need to throw the ball away. Additionally, I chart throwaways as a very, very slightly negative play, but as long as it's a good throwaway, they get a plus pocket movement because they're doing the right thing, avoiding a sack by throwing the ball away, and it makes it a neutral play. And sometimes, if a quarterback does a really good job of throwing it away, like Patrick Mahomes throwing it away with his left hand while he's being torn down to the ground, I give him 2 pocket movements, and now it's a slightly positive play. Fumbles are simple. Did the quarterback drop the ball before his knee touched the ground? Fumble. And that really sums it up. The reason that we chart these plays is because, believe it or not, despite what you've been told, numbers do lie. Pretty often, in fact. I go through and I watch every play, and I put them into one of these categories, sometimes 2. You can have a fumble or a pocket movement on almost any of these kinds of plays. That's all I got for you. Hopefully that brings a little bit of clarity to what exactly these plays look like and what exactly these terms on my chart mean. I know that it's not super professional to call a throw elite. I used to call them wow throws, and people gave me a real hard time for that. If you think of a better name, throw it in the comments. I might adopt it. That's exactly what happened with routine. People got sick of hearing me say pedestrian. I said routine. Keep in mind that most things in this world are average. That's the point of average. So most plays are going to be pedestrian. Most runs are going to be neutral. And that's okay. That's what it's there for. We don't penalize anybody for those. We just don't congratulate you for graduating kindergarten. You shoulda. We're glad you didn't mess up and bite the teacher, but this is what we expected. And hopefully this makes watching future videos a lot easier. Until then, hasta. I'll be grinding film.